This morning, we also have Mr. Jembi here with us. He is a legal practitioner. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thank you.
What a day it will be in the courts this morning. And so I'm just wondering, what's going through your mind? Because, look, sometimes you can miss some of these things.
This decision, this breaking news that you just talked about, again has followed, if you say, from the other day on Friday when those decisions were handed down. There was this air of jubilation, particularly in 3 states, and most particularly in Plateau and in Kano states, because the expectation was that the Kano state was going to go the way of the chairman of the APC, being that the chairman of the APC is from that state, that the APC was going to take Kano on the basis of the decision that was handed down. And in Plateau State, again, it was a lot of people were expecting that maybe the president will the government will intervene and give the governorship again to his party. But that didn't happen. And so there was this feeling that the Supreme Court has decided not to be swayed by any political considerations, or that the president himself did not want to interfere with the judicial process. And so it was decided on the basis of law. But people stepped back and, upon a calmer consideration, you will note that all of them were sitting governors. No sitting governor was removed. Today, again, we are seeing in Delta State, the sitting governor, by virtue of this breaking news, has again retained his seat. The surprise today will be if any sitting governor loses his seat. Yes.
That would be a big one.
That would be a big one, you know, because the kind of exultant feelings that the Nigerian people had when the sitting governor, Celestine Umehia, was removed, and the outsider, you know, Rotimi Amechi, was brought in. You could just feel palpably the mood of the nation change. Okay, the choice of the PDP at the time, the Obasanjo presidency, that was his choice. The Celestine Umehia was his choice. The choice of his party, and a very strong Obasanjo presidency. And yet the Supreme Court held its head high and decided to do what they felt was right by the law and by the people. And so the big one today will be if a sitting governor loses at the Supreme Court. Then it will go against the grain of the thinking that once you, by hook or crook, by whatever means, you're able to get yourself elected as a sitting governor, that you are going to sit there pretty.
What do you think the mindset is, though, either from the people or from the judiciary, especially after last week's decisions?
Yes.
Because before last week's decisions, you know, several people, I don't know if I should use the word prejudice, many just thought,
actually,
we're not sure what to expect.
Had given up on the Supreme Court.
So you see that.
Yes.
So
but
after
those decisions, again, in a way, shored up the esteem of the Supreme Court in the eyes of the people.
Is it not too early to come to that conclusion?
Well, after we saw Machina, we saw Hope Uzodimma, a lot of people did not know what to expect anymore, that the Supreme Court could do anything, because the Machina case in particular is one that nobody could justify on the basis of law fact. A man who did not participate in the primaries, you know, being declared Ahmad Lawan, the former Senate president. And so to the people, this was just, they just couldn't wrap their heads around this. And so when last week happened and the party, the ruling party's candidates were losing in key states, and don't forget that Kano, Lagos, and Rivers are key electoral assets for any political party, whether it is in power or not, and particularly the party in power. And so that Kano could go the way of the NNPP, and also in Plateau State, we saw it going the way of the PDP. A lot of Nigerians, their esteem is simply shot up the esteem again of the Supreme Court in the eyes of the people. So the expectations have become very high that this Supreme Court is not going to be in any way harassed, hoodwinked, or cajoled into making a decision that is not on the basis of the established facts, proved facts, and the law. So that expectation is very high, and particularly in states like Nasarawa State. People, because the tribunal had declared the PDP candidate as the duly elected governor of Nasarawa State, but the Court of Appeal set that aside. So the expectation, and of course, why was it set up, the declaration? of the PDP candidate in Nasarawa State was on the basis of the fact that 2 wards in Lafia local government areas, I think, two council wards, the votes from those, when they were expunged from the total votes of the sitting governor, they declared the PDP candidate. And you saw the celebration in Nasarawa State. You saw the feeling.
And the interesting part of that is that both of them were in court the last time.
Yes.
So if both of them are there today,
both
looking
of
the
them
judges in the face.
Yes.
Whoa.
That their faces will count for nothing. The ram that is to be slaughtered may as well frown at the man trying to slaughter him. It will not change anything. However, today, if the Supreme Court take a decision that the people...
Oh boy, what a day. I don't plan to... It's not easy to be in that shoes.
Today, the Supreme Court today is going to face its real litmus test. And once that happens, because of also the hope that the people have invested in the Supreme Court after those decisions, it will be a wonderful time.
Very, very interesting analysis you've given. I mean, it's like it's even more tense than the football match we witnessed yesterday.
Oh, boy. Except
congratulations to Nigeria.
I sincerely hope that all of the players in the court today will also imbibe the spirit of sportsmanship to know that this is not a do-or-die affair. Whichever way the Supreme Court rules, and we hope that
that is the problem.
That spirit of sportsmanship?
Yes, that spirit of sportsmanship should be displayed at the polling unit.
Oh.
During the elections. If you lose, accept that you have lost. And so if you expect the man or the woman who, on the basis of established facts, believes that he or she won the election, whatever the Supreme Court or any court, the tribunal or any court at all decides, it would be unfair to expect the person to simply fold his hands and say, okay, don't worry, the courts have decided. That is why we need to really go back to the basics. We need to really be sure that the courts are not, because what these decisions are doing to the court, especially when they are not reflective of the voting pattern, and technicalities are used to deprive the one who won the elections at the polls, is that it pains the court, even though the court would have decided on the basis of the proof facts before it and applying the law.
So what?
It pains the court in a manner that is not very palatable. It makes the court appear to be the one assisting or supporting those who rig elections. And particularly when some people will tell the people whom they have rigged out to go to court. So I believe that to get to the point of encouraging people to be sportsmanlike is to ensure that it is the will of the people as determined by them at the polling booth that is reflected in the decisions of the court. Otherwise, but again, nobody should take it. There's going to be another round of election, but people may not be happy. The Supreme Court, in the case of Plateau State, pointed out very clearly that there had been injustices meted out to the people of Plateau State. But Plateau has been quiet. We don't know how they're going to take it. They've taken it calmly so far, and we believe that law and order should be the primary consideration. However, justice should always be the ultimate consideration.
Indeed, we spoke with the lawyer of the PDP, yes, of the PDP in Plateau State, and they said that they are still looking for ways to see if anything can be done to remedy the situation of those who have lost their seats as a result of what happened at the Court of Appeal.
Yeah, right.
It's still unclear whether anything is going to happen there. But just to emphasize, because you have said that sportsmanship, the spirit of sportsmanship should be imbibed at the polling units. And some people will say, well, it's perhaps also in the spirit of sportsmanship that they've gone to the courts and not taken to the streets or taken up arms, you know, to fight it out.
No, people have been on the streets. Maybe not taking up arms.
Well, when we mean...
If you see the protests in places like Nasarawa.
A peaceful protest is okay.
Peaceful. That's the right to freedom of expression.
Exactly. But, you know, the kind of thing we fear is violence.
Yeah,
that's what nobody wants.
Nobody will encourage that.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when we say the spirit of sportsmanship, I think what we're trying to say is regardless of whatever happens, people should know that maximum 4 years. This cannot be more than 4 years.
4 years is a century in politics.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Why some can't wait. They just do whatever they have to do before the 4 years.
But we do believe, I mean, because from what you have said so far, that the Supreme Court essentially seemed to have delivered justice.
Yes.
In the case of what we saw last week, Friday, Chamberlain, from what we have seen, it would seem that, but somehow what has also stood out is that status quo has been maintained.
Yes.
I wonder what the likelihood, if you were to look at all of the cases before their lordships today, what is the probability? And I'm choosing my words very carefully because I know you cannot say anything untoward.
Yeah.
You cannot preempt their lordships.
Yeah.
What is the probability?
Will be sub judice.
Yes. What is the probability that any cases will be overturned today, given the nature of the cases being presented, looking at the facts being presented before their lordships? What is the probability?
Taking Nasarawa State in particular, it took the INEC a few days after the elections to declare the results. And within that period, the results that were not turned in were the ones that the PDP candidate complained very bitterly that his votes were suppressed and votes were added to the votes of the candidate of the APC. And it was on that basis, because the decision of the tribunal is what I'm referring to. When those votes were expunged, 1,868 votes, yes, were expunged from the totality of the votes cast, I mean, as calculated, as declared by INEC. The PDP candidate was declared by the tribunal as the winner of that election, as the one that was elected by the people of Nasarawa State. Of course, that was set aside by the Court of Appeal, particularly on the grounds that the main plank of that decision was that the primary objection of the candidate of the APC at the tribunal was not properly considered, that all the issues were not considered, and therefore there had been a denial of fair hearing. Now, that was the main plank. There were others, particularly front-loading, that the documents were not front-loaded and all of that. So, a lot of people in Nasarawa State, I have seen, of course, you are media people, you have seen the protests that greeted the decision of the Court of Appeal, and they have sustained it because the people actually believe that the candidate of the PDP, in their thinking, was the one that they voted for. Now, the expectation in states like Nasarawa State will be that the candidate of the PDP, well, with the Supreme Court looking at the decision of the Court of Appeal and what was constituted for its consideration, make that call. That is still in the realm of conjecture. And in a few moments, I'm sure the Supreme Court is going to hand down its decisions and we'll know. But that is the expectation of the people. But like Chamberlain pointed out, both the governor, I saw a lady sitting by the pictures from this thing last Friday, I mean, was it on Monday when the appeal was argued, was heard? I saw the candidate of the PDP resplendent in his agbada with a lady who I suppose might be his wife. Mm-hmm. When people are beginning to move their family members to even go to the court, it means that the expectation is high. And I saw the sitting governor, His Excellency, the governor of Nasarawa State, with a country of top party officials and government officials seated there watching very keenly. Mm-hmm. I believe that on both sides, the expectations are high. But ultimately, it is what the Supreme Court decides that is going to count.
Indeed. And it's interesting that Nasarawa is one of the places where, you know, the elections themselves are being contested.
Yes.
In many other instances, what we have seen is, you know, qualifications, exactly. All the you know, let's say surrounding pre-qualifications that should escort you know, an electoral process. So looking at those issues and looking at what is actually being presented before the lordship, sometimes when court cases don't go in the manner that they have gone, should we blame their lordships or should we be blaming the lawyers?
No. Well, not
the lawyers who know that
something. Sometimes also not the lawyers. Because there have been conflicting decisions. For instance, take the Court of Appeal in the Plateau case. There's been a long line of decisions on matters that are internal to a political party, sponsorship of a candidate. Yeah, the Court of Appeal decided on, contrary to those lines of decisions. It didn't follow. So this kind of conflicting decisions from the courts is what enables, what enables the lawyers studying these decisions. That perhaps my candidate has a chance, my client has a chance, and maybe a good chance. Let's test it. When you go to court, is to ventilate your grievance, and it is not always that you must win, but you ought to present the matter before the court to be able to take a decision, to take a look at it. And one of the things that you talked about, some of the decisions, in Nasarawa State in particular, that they are contesting the actual votes as against other decisions. Majority of the cases where they are talking of non-compliance with the electoral, with the law. Now, it is this Nasarawa case that is testing the limits of our democracy, of the quality of the votes that people cast. And so a lot of people are talking about the Nasarawa case because it portends grave danger for our democracy. And maybe one case that is also going to come up eventually, which is before the tribunal, is the Kogi case matter, where people are contesting the votes, not those other matters, technical matters of non-compliance, of qualification, and all of that. These are the kind of decisions that help our democracies to grow.
Indeed.
And we are hoping that when the Kogi State matter comes up, that Kogi State matter is as messy as it gets. It has always been, but this particular one, where votes are being contested very bitterly, when it comes up also, a lot of the conversation will be around it.
Well, thank you. My own question to you, sir, is perhaps a kind of follow-up to Marquez's question when you said, you don't think it's not the lawyers. Then who? Because, so on the one hand, the politicians want the case to go as far as possible, take it to the zenith of the judiciary in the country. But their lawyers kind of advise them, knowing, for instance, there was a case that, the justices, I think it was of the Supreme Court, said, this case ought not to have come here at all. The lawyers know, right, that the case wasn't supposed to come there, to get that far in the first place. So even if the clients were insisting, that I would consider it an embarrassment, for instance, that the justices said, you legal practitioners, you ought to know better. This case ought not to come here in the first place. So how do you respond to that?
Well, my response would just be that their lordships, with all due respect, when they make such comments, they are not questioning the knowledge or skill and experience of the lawyer. They are simply stating the law, that on the basis of the established decisions, the judicial precedent, because our system of law is based on stare decisis, precedents that are binding on lower courts, decisions that have been taken before. When they make such comments, in most cases, it simply means that they are stating the position of the law, that you ought to know the law. But no lawyer knows all the law. And like I pointed out earlier on, there are quite sometimes where even the courts themselves make decisions and make pronouncements that appear to suggest that if you come by a different procedure, or if the facts were slightly different, that they would have decided differently. That is why in constituting these cases, I know particularly in political decisions, electoral matters, you are actually helping sometimes to also stop the people from embarking on self-help. If the people sincerely believe that they have voted in a particular manner, that the majority of the electorate voted in a particular manner and they are denied, the tendency will be at that moment when the emotions are very high that they may want to engage in self-help. And in doing so, there will be a breakdown of law and order. So it is part of the duty of the lawyer, of everybody within the judicial process, to ensure that that doesn't happen. And if there's a window, that there's a possibility that the court will decide one way or the other, and particularly in favor, based on all the decisions, a review of all the decisions that have been made before, You want to explore that window of opportunity. So when their lordships make such comments, it should never be taken as a denigration of the lawyer who constituted those cases. There are some that you may think, there are some cases that you go to court. You look at it, there are decisions that are against you, but you think that there are facts that justify a review of those decisions. Or there are facts that justify the court will distinguish. You will help the court because all the lawyers do is to assist the court to distinguish those decisions. And if you succeed in doing that, and because there are no two cases that are exactly the same, there may be a distinguishing factor that if you properly consider, if the courts properly consider, may appear to go against the earlier decisions. So it is not always the fault of the lawyers. It is not as if they are instigated by the clients or the candidates in the election who have lost to go to court. No, It is not always so. It is always that the opinion, after a review, the opinion of the lawyers that this case has a fair chance of succeeding.
I'm almost certain that you also know that there have been cases where those cases ought not to go to court, but they go anyway. Well, let's step away from that for a bit and talk about the fact that, still on the same subject matter, sometimes the legal practitioner will actually advise the politician or the client in whatever circumstance that, look, this case, this is where it terminates. But the client could insist, hoping for some miracle, or perhaps by reason of some comments coming from around him or her, saying, look, let's pursue it, let's keep pursuing this. And the lawyer, knowing all of the circumstances, says, look, we can't go ahead with this because of this reason. Should the client insist, is there anything the legal practitioner can do to say, you know what, the judges, this is what they are likely to say. It is likely to incur more costs for you and all of that. What does the client, the counsel do in that kind of situation? Do you insist that you will go with what your client is saying, knowing how the case is going to end? Or you just say, look, I'm not going to go because I have a conscience and we know the precedents of the law, we're trying to strengthen our democracy and all of that. Which one should normally or naturally carry the day?
Now, a lawyer doesn't just file an action in court. A lawyer would have reviewed the facts. A lawyer would have researched the law. A lawyer would have seen whether there is any decision. It may appear on the face of the files that have been constituted for him that maybe this might be a palpably very bad case. But if upon researching, is able to discover that there is a window of opportunity, like I said earlier on, because there have been some comments of the courts or some decisions, a lone decision standing that will inform the possibility of constituting that case for the determination of their lordships. He will exploit. But if a lawyer knows that this is not so, it will be unethical to take the matter to court, because what that does is to paint the courts in very bad light. It will make the people believe that the courts are there to do injustice or to waste the time of the court. And in such cases, sometimes the courts award costs personally against the lawyer, because the lawyer ought to have known that this matter ought never to have been constituted. But that will also depend on how the matter was constituted for the court. It will depend go a long way, because if the case is arguable, all the lawyer needs to do is to have an arguable case. The ultimate decision is that of the court.
And the court has also done another one. They are breaking news too, coming through again from the courts, and this time the courts has dismissed all 3 appeals, that of the APC, SDP, and the Labour Party, challenging the election of the governor of Delta State. So all of those also going on as we speak. But earlier, we did take you to the Federal High Court, where the former CBN governor is standing, taking a look at his amended charges. So, Mr. Jembi, you just hang in here since it's a court matter. We're crossing over now to bring in Mr. Okudili Ojukwu, who is a former Oh dear, we lost him, but we'll see how we can bring him back, because we understand that the court has reasoned in the case of the former CBN governor. Remember, there was a 20-count amended charge which was read to him while he appeared in court. We brought you those images previously. So we'll reestablish that connection and see how we can bring him back and bring all of that. But the courts, Supreme Court, coming up with this decision now. So it appears as though that's over and done with. They're going to move on and decide on some of these other cases at the moment. So looking through all of this, so all of those politicians who, I don't know if you heard it, you know, in time past, we always hear them say, we'll go to court, let's meet you in court. Appear as though they were boasting that they will have their way in court. Do you think, from the look of things now, things may change?
I believe so. I believe that the Supreme Court, this Supreme Court, has risen to the occasion, and very greatly. And the way the decisions in respect of those 7 matters that were decided the other day went, the way they saw the jubilation in the land, the esteem with which people clothed the Supreme Court with, I believe that the Supreme Court, this Supreme Court, will continue to toe this line, will continue to do justice in all matters, particularly electoral matters, and in all matters that are constituted for us.
We've got another breaking news coming through from the courts. The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal filed by Mr. Ladi Adebutu of the PDP challenging the election victory of Governor Dapo Abiodun of Ogun State. So talking about the decision for Ogun State, the Supreme Court, the candidate of the appeal by the candidate, that's Mr. Ladi Adebutu, he was contending that the election of Governor Dapo Abiodun did not comply with electoral laws and that Governor Dapo Abiodun did not score the lawful majority votes, and he was asking the court to void his election. But in the judgment, the Apex Court dismissed the appeal for lack of merit. So what does that mean then, Mr. Abba, on this particular case? It's end of the road, isn't it?
End of the road.
Ogun PDP.
Another sitting governor, sitting pretty. Yes. Again, until you read the reasoning, we are here. Until you read the reasoning of the court, of the Supreme Court, you will not see what the basis for the decision is. But just for now, we know that Dr. Abiodun, the sitting governor, his seat has been saved. And of course, that's the 9th now. Sitting governor, 7 from the other day and now 2 today.
But guess what? The court has risen, so they'll reconvene to deliver judgment for Nasarawa, Kebbi, Kaduna, and Gombe states.
Yes.
So further waiting for them.
Kaduna is also very interesting. The tussle between the PDP and the APC, the voting pattern. In fact, if you read the complaint of the PDP, which was the party that came closest, they actually believe that they won the votes, the election at the polls. Nasarawa State, Kaduna State, I think they are the key states to watch what the Supreme Court will say about this thing. If for any reason, any of the sitting governors or both sitting governors lose their seats, it's going to say a very clear message to whoever cares to contest any other election, that you need to win the election at the polling unit. In Kaduna State, because of all that happened in El-Rufai's 8 years, the state was divided right down the middle on ethnic and religious lines. And that is terrible. But this governor, in his, how many months, about 8 months now, has, in a way, won the hearts of the people that is going to do business differently. So we'll just wait and see what the Supreme Court will say.
Oh, yes,
but there has to be a healing in Kaduna State. There has to be a healing. Whether it is this sitting governor who retains his seat or is the PDP candidate who is declared, there has to be a healing. The state has, Kaduna is a wonderful city.
So just finally,
but no more.
for how the case went with Plateau.
Yes.
You know, at the Supreme Court, the court now, the governor kept his seat.
Yes.
But all of those who stopped at the appeal stage...
2 senators gone.
They kept it.
5 members of the House of Reps, 16 members of the State House of Assembly. Are they going to simply fold their hands, knowing that? I don't think so. I wait to see what will come out of...
What else can they do? Other than to appeal to God?
Well, no.
They can't go to Supreme Court.
No. They can go to the Supreme Court, but not starting from the Supreme Court. If any... You see, one of the things that people are looking at, I've been thinking about it too. If anybody, whether it is a quasi-judicial body or a judicial body, makes a decision that is obviously in breach of his powers, of his bias, has no jurisdiction to make such a decision. Are you saying there is no remedy? When it's ubi jus, ubi remedium? Where there is a wrong, there must be a remedy. Where is the power of the court? Why were the courts given the powers of certiorari? The powers to remove for caution a decision that was made without jurisdiction. I am thinking maybe this will be a test case. Whether a decision of the Supreme Court, of the Court of Appeal, can be removed made without jurisdiction, as declared by the Supreme Court, can be removed for the purposes of caution before the Federal High Court. Now that is a very terrible situation for a lower court to begin to quash, to review the decision of the Supreme Court when they decided against the long line of decisions to do it. And it was as if it was not argued before them. Those decisions were presented before them. Why did they do what they did? And I think it's Professor Chidi Odinkalu who wrote a piece, I think last week or early this week, calling on the President of the Court of Appeal to resign on the basis of this decision, on the basis of what happened before in that Plateau case. That is administrative. But and if a lawyer goes to court to say, look, even if it is the President of Nigeria, who is the head of the executive, who makes a decision that is seen to be without jurisdiction, to be unfair, can it not be removed for the purposes of caution? Is it because it's the Court of Appeal? So I think lawyers people are looking at this and arguing, can we have a test case? But the problem with that is that the Nigerian court would have been ridiculed. And terribly so.
All right, so I guess the case of Nasarawa, Kebbi, Kaduna, Gombe, they will all wait until the judges get back and continue their decision on those matters. But it's a continuing story, so don't worry. We'll always cross over and bring you that update whenever it comes through. So no matter what we're focusing on, we'll always bring that to you. So don't worry about that. We'll keep doing what we can. But Mr. Abba Ajimbi, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much. I wait to see if the Supreme Court will remove a sitting governor. If that happens, I know that our democracy has received a shot in the arm.
Well, there you go. Different strokes for different folks to tell you.